Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we are looking at a certain Mr. Munroe, Mike Munroe from Until Dawn, and we're going to be asking whether he should be getting any forgiveness. So I am going to be the prosecutor in this case. Liam is going to be defending Mike, his client, and we're ultimately going to throw it over to you at the end, so that you can decide once you've heard our arguments. Okay, so, well, I mean, I'm going to attack Mike, right? And I'm going to say that actually, it's one of the very first things that he says in this game, if not the first thing. He says, "Hey Em, I'm not anybody's man." Now, I mean, obviously everyone's got their own opinions on, relationships, how, monogamous, how relaxed they can be, right? But I think Mike really does take the piss because he's supposed to be with Emily, and we know that later on he then gets with Jess, who's in the same group. And of course, during this prank, he leads Hannah on to think that, that he likes her. So straight off the bat, Mike, he's a womanizer, and that doesn't necessarily rub well with me. So I don't know, I'll throw that over to you, mate, as to how you want to respond.
Oh, it rubs well with Jess, Emily, and Hannah. That no, okay. Just start instantly sleazy. I've lost the case here and now, but yeah. No, I'll just defend my client a little bit. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, a lot of my angles, I'm not going to be justifying his past behavior because yeah, I mean, we could say the guy's 17, 18 in the prologue where, he's a bit of a bad egg. He is in a relationship with someone, leads another one on in a prank, which heavily backfires. I will say, if we are discussing the prank, he is at the heart of it. He shouldn't have done it. There's no justifying it. But you could also say that everyone else in the room, bar Sam, Chris and Josh, are enablers as well. I think if we're attacking Mike, we could easily attack Ashley, Emily, Matt, Jess as well. I believe they're all the people in the room. So yeah, the prank, you can't defend it. It's horrible what happens. I will also say, though, that for none of the guys, though, there was never the intention to kill the sisters. Obviously, egg on Hannah's face. She runs outside, falls off the cliff. A lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication with, the stranger with the flamethrower. But, I mean, Mike, he's a bit of a bad egg at the start there. But, I think we have to all admit that his intention is never to harm Hannah there.
No, of course. Although I would come back, I would say, because obviously they are all involved in the prank. I do wonder, but I do feel like Mike should shoulder some more responsibility, though, because he is ultimately subject of the prank. It really spins on him. If he turned round to the rest of the group and said, "Hey guys, look, I don't want to be part of this prank, that's really mean," on Hannah, the prank probably wouldn't have happened. It's... I get the point, but I do think that he does need to shoulder some responsibility. But I would concede that, of course, the intentions of, it wouldn't have... he wouldn't have wanted Hannah to, run off like that, and ultimately her and Beth fall off the cliff and die. But, he does have blood on his hands, and, it's... Just because he does good things later on, someone could kill a person and then donate their clothes to a charity shop. Does that mean that, they're a good person? Of course not, so...
I hope so, because that's what I did last Sunday. No, Nah, I mean, to be honest, mate, I completely get what you're saying, and I do agree. He kind of is the leader of the group, and this is kind of me stepping on your side a little bit. It's probably the one time I'll do this video to, keep with the structure. But, I completely agree. I do think the game needs to do a much better job at, showing this, responsibility and kind of maybe guilt side of Mike, because it's not something we really see in the game. And we actually will release a future video on this. I do agree, yeah, he needs a better job of acknowledging the sisters throughout the game, because it only really happens when he's sort of walking to that lodge with Jess, where he's ultimately trying to bone her. But so that is something that is bad on Mike. But yeah, no, I do admit, yeah, as a leader of the group, potential leader anyway, he probably could shoulder a lot more responsibility to like stopping this prank, which really backfires, and it's not something anyone intended, which is just a really horrible series of unfortunate events, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, just to as a wrap up to this point, I'm obviously arguing the case that Mike is almost like the architect of the events of this game in a way. Of course, you could say Josh, because he ultimately brings people back. But of course, if the sisters hadn't have died, then he wouldn't be bringing them back. And obviously, if Mike hadn't done the prank, then, there would be no reason for everyone to go back a year later and, Josh to have his scheme of revenge. But there's another quote here. He says, "I was just messing around, Beth. It wasn't serious," which I find really surprising, because later on in Until Dawn, of course, he does put others first, thinking about Jess when he chases after her. So it just, in this moment here, it seems that he just lacked empathy for Hannah. Is that because that he wasn't interested in her? Is it that he only shows empathy to people that he's in a relationship with at the time? But I don't know, I think his whole treatment of women here, they are somewhat disposable in his eyes. Doesn't paint a pretty picture. So yeah, I don't know if you wanted to come back on that last bit, mate, or if you wanted to put an argument forward now.
Yeah, of course. Order in the court. No, I'll just defend my client a little bit, just to say that, yeah, there's no excuse for the prank. But one thing that I think a lot of people forget when we analyse these Until Dawn characters is that the group are, they're still in school, aren't they? They've just come off of high school, I believe. I think they're around that age of maybe between 17 to 19, just going off to college kind of thing. And I think we can all admit we've all done some fairly big mistakes that we regret back at that age, whether maybe you pranked a friend, maybe you wronged someone you shouldn't have, and maybe you're a completely different person now. So that's just a whole other debate about how accountable you can look back at these actions. Admittedly, yeah, it did lead to a death. I will fall back on the fact it wasn't intentional. But we all did a bunch of wild stuff back when we were 18. I remember you at uni, Jack. You were a wild kid in first year of uni.
Oh yeah, I mean, the less said the better, mate, because I was a wild child, no. But yeah.
To be honest, you mentioned it a little bit, so I'll build off of it. It's just the fact that, yeah, the guy really goes above and beyond for his group. I get, I mean, admittedly, in the first 3 chapters, yeah, he hugs, he looks out for Emily, so, maybe there's concern, and he still, wants to keep the peace with his ex. But, ultimately, you can really see, I think, he does actually really feel for Jess. I think, she's not disposable, because I feel if she was, that man would not run after what he thought was a bear through the snow trying to save her. And it's not even just Jess and the relationships, you look at all the other people, when he's going around with Sam, there's clearly he's not trying to bone her. I know loads of people ship Sam and Mike, but I think it is just literally a mutual respect that they hold with each other, and they literally see each other as the 2 most resourceful and biggest leaders, probably strongest characters to help the group for their survival. If Ashley kills Chris at the door, you can see Mike consoling Ashley. So he looks out for, the quiet girl of the group. He mourns for Jess if she does go, and even with Josh, when they find out it's him. And you could argue that his methods are a little erratic, taking him outside, tying him up. But when Chris, goes to be really extreme, he tries to keep the peace, nah, I'm not going to kill Josh. So you look at all of his actions, whether he's going to the sanatorium and whatnot, but he really goes above and beyond. And I mean, I'll comment more on, his heroic actions, but what I will say is that I don't think you can question the guy's empathy throughout the game. Admittedly, it probably lacks there in the prologue and, the first third of the game. But throughout the game, the guy shows a tremendous story arc of just really growing as an individual.
Okay. I mean, I'll take your point. I'm going to somewhat come back at you for it, looking at the character of Josh. So, again, I've got a couple of quotes here. So, I'll say one of them's from Chris, and this is when Josh reveals to be the psycho. And, Mike is basically saying, oh, he's off his fucking meds. He's losing it. He's getting very reactive and worked up. And he hits him. He calls him a lunatic. He says that he's gone full mental jacket at the end of the game, which doesn't seem to be that he's very empathetic towards Josh, who's clearly got some sort of like mental health issue from something that Mike directly caused, which was that his sisters died. So I don't know if you want to come back at that, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, like, that language isn't, like, on at all. I do think, though, like, obviously heat of the moment, rage, because he strongly believes that the girl he really likes, Jess, has died at the hands of his pranks, So, I do think, a bit of rage is justified there. The language isn't. But, yeah, like, one thing I will say, though, is that, like, I do think he does care for Josh, because if we look at, chapter 9 and 10, he will go back to basically the heart of the Wendigo layers, like a really dangerous place. He'll like go through the sanatorium twice, basically, to bring him back, and like this isn't even because Sam's with him, like when Sam climbs and goes on by herself, he is with Josh, and admittedly he only leaves when he actually thinks Josh is dead, or actually does get his skull crushed in front of him. So yeah, like, back to the point of him going above and beyond. And I'll also add the fact that if you look at the final scene with the burning building, he literally is a massive martyr in the fact that he will be the last man in the building. And while everyone runs out, he will be the man with the lighter who will happily sacrifice himself. And I almost think that might potentially be a little bit of redemption arc, thinking maybe I caused these events. Maybe I should be the one that doesn't get to go. I should try and save everyone else.
Okay, I'll take your point. I mean, I'm going to try my best now because I feel like I'm on the losing side, but I'm going to literally try and do my best, like, lawyer, solicitor,
Yeah.
you want to call it, methods to try and, like, salvage something from this. I do take your point that he seems to act before he thinks, but I'm just going to put another couple of things at you now. So, like, of course, again, very reactive in the scene when they're downstairs, and there's perhaps the potential that Emily is infected, at least that's what they think at the time. Mike can ultimately shoot Emily, that's obviously something that has a question mark above his head. Also as well, just to like question his intelligence. So like, one of the things that comes up is that he's actually intelligent, when you first see the character model of Mike. And I just thought it wasn't very intelligent how he thought that Josh was behind the abduction of Jess. He sees these massive 3 claws come through the door and yank her out. He also sees through a sniper scope these 3 claws dragging Jess away. And how does he sincerely expect Josh to be behind it when he's just a human being? And Mike is absolutely running through the snow, like trying to keep up with this thing. So again, like coming back to how he treats Josh after that, it seems that ironically enough, he's not very intelligent, and he's just a very reactive individual that doesn't think through consequences.
Completely, yeah. No, I do agree. Like the whole thing is really reactive, especially in the basement when he shoots Emily, or potentially does. I know it's very, player choice heavy, and I know it's sort of Ashley who discovers the bite and can trigger it. But yeah, like, I do think like, if he does shoot Emily, the reason is probably to protect the wider group. I do think, there is still that concern. He sees himself as the leader, which is why, like, the guy busts his ass going through sanatoriums and back to find, like, keys or information or saving Jess. Yeah, I think it's because, like, if Emily does turn, and if it does turn out to be some kind of zombie sort of infection, I think he wants to protect Chris, Ashley, and Sam down in the basement. And yeah, like, I do admit, he's not the smartest man. It's very erratic, very irrational. But yeah, like, I completely get your point on board. The last part I really wanted to say, and this is probably less about Mike as a person, but more about the writing. And I think it's one you'd probably agree on, to be honest. I fucking love the fact that this character is flawed. He has so much depth, because what I would hate is if they made Mike be this perfect guy with only good morals, where he's just this really great action hero. I feel like the prank backfiring is the catalyst of the game, which sets off all the actions. Until Dawn we absolutely love as a game, and I feel like this prank at the start of the game is the absolute trigger for everything, and I'm so glad the writing is done the way it is, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. Like, I can't remember if we did, but probably should have made it clear at the start of the video. Both the camps that we're taking, we're not necessarily in them camps, are we? We're literally just doing it as a role play thing. You know, I'm prosecuting him and you're defending him, right? The reality is that we both think that he's quite a grey character. There's pros and cons, etc. But yeah, no, I do agree. The writing of Mike is absolutely superb. I like the way he's acted as well. And you know what? I'm just gonna, while we talk about his character, I'm gonna touch on another thing which I don't think would necessarily be to do with forgiving Mike, but again, just perhaps flaws in his character. So what I'd sum it up as really is that he can give it but can't take it. And what I mean by that is that, of course, at the start of the game, he jump scares Emily and Matt on their walk up to the lodge. And then there's later on where he throws a snowball near Jess, which again makes her jump. But then later on, when she makes him jump with the carcass of some sort of animal, or whereby she disappears and, you know, freaks him out, and I think she even jump scares him in the woods as well. He flips out and he gets all irritated, and I sort of think, you know, an eye for an eye, Mike. You know, you've got to understand that people will try and get, you know, some sort of like, you know, get their own back essentially for like the little pranks and things that you play.
No, I do completely agree with that one. Like, the man's not great at having a taste of his own medicine. So yeah, like it is really funny though to see him whinge like at Jess when he literally did the same thing half an hour ago. I do agree on that one. Yeah, I mean, last point I really have, mate, is, you know, he saves a dog. Granted, he can kick the dog. I do get that, but yeah, if you look at like the Black Wolf, it ends up dead at the hand of Wendigos. And I know like Wolfie can die, it can live, but you know, guy likes dogs, you know. So like I think like that's got to count for something, right?
And that's it. And I will just level it up by saying that he can get Wolfie killed. So yeah. I mean, guys, obviously, we'll wrap it up there. We'll now throw it over to you. After hearing all the evidence, you think that Mike Munroe should be forgived for his earlier actions in Until Dawn. My closing statement is that the guy, he's got an inflated ego, he's a womanizer, he's got blood on his hands, and that he needs to get comeuppance for the things that he's done. But I'll throw it over to Liam now.
And I'm saying the guy likes dogs. We all made mistakes when we were younger. He shows incredible story arc to bust his ass for the group. So yeah, I think he should be spared. I think the man should roam free, and he can choose to make out with who he pleases in the future. So one thing I will say, guys, is obviously please support this video if you enjoyed it. Leave in your comments your opinions. We're probably going to put out a poll as well, probably about now-ish from this video release, where you can vote for either one. Be sure to leave your comments, because Jack and I think we'll do a reacts video where we weigh in your points and we'll judge them together. So yeah, have your say on the Mike conundrum. Do you reckon he should be forgiven or not?
Absolutely, and do look out for other videos similar to this as well. We're already thinking of potentially doing one on Josh Washington and perhaps even other characters from other studios as well. So unless you've got anything else to add, mate, we'll leave it there.
I'm happy. Thank you very much for joining, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
See you next time.